that our profession, those of us who are coaches, those of you, the majority here in the audience who purchase coaching, I don't think that this profession has matured yet. I think we're still sort of finding our way. And I'll be quick because, but I feel very passionate about this, and I've been having more and more thoughts. Suzuki-san yesterday talked about his long-term relationships. Vikram just alluded to, actually the most favorite client that I've ever had was his boss. It's a guy named Steve. He's with GE. And I first coached him in the early 90s. And I have not consistently coached him, but I have returned to very intense experiences. When he was put into an Asia-wide role last year, I came back into a very intense coaching, 360s, all of it. And I've had that several times with him. But I had the advantage of having, he was picked up as being very high potential when I first met him by Welsh, who was then the chairman. The point that I want to make, though, is that I think there's a place, and I think we need to consider several different types of coaching. If you think about where this term came from, when I started, there was not this term coach. And so I've kind of grown with this profession. When I started seeing this term coach coming in, and then I thought about where it came from, particularly we think about athletics, but it's not just athletics. You can be an opera singer at the top of your game. You can play golf and be at the top of your game. You can be in particularly, as Suzuki-san said yesterday, high-performing, individualized activities always have a coach. And if you were to turn to somebody who wants to be world-class Olympic athlete and say, we're going to give you a coach for 9 months or a year or 3 months, and then it's over, and yet we still want you to realize that next year we're going to expect you to run faster, jump higher, the person's going to look at you like you're crazy. They need the coach as long as they're going to stay in the game. Now, it might be a different coach, but in other words, translate that to the extremely high consequence and very, very changing environment that we've got now in business. Most of us are business-oriented coaches or purchasing coaching. I believe that we will come to a point, particularly, obviously there's a cost problem here. You can't afford a high-level and very expensive coaching for all sorts of people. But the consequence, the value of coaching for your very top people is extreme. And if you think that you can be a CEO of a company and only get a year's worth of feedback, and yet you look over at the Olympic athlete who wants to next year run faster and has to have that feedback loop as an integral part of getting better. It's the same in my mind. And that's why Steve, for instance, was his boss, very, very, very high up in GE now, only 2 steps away from Immelt. And he knows that he has to stay on top of his game. An ambitious guy who's going to go much further. And so he needs that feedback. So I'm extraordinarily passionate about this. I know it sounds like heresy because in some ways of thinking about it, those of us that control budgets or are trying to receive contracts, it sounds like you're trying to invent a possibility of lifetime employment. That's the joke that gets made. But I think let's get away from that and away from maybe an individual person, but think about this role. If you want to stay on top of your game, you really need feedback.
Okay, and
Colin, I'm going to just take it for 1 second.
just 1 second.
Yeah.
That's it.
One advantage of doing this that Gary's talking about is, and think about as coaches, change the structure of fees for that one or two people you have a long-term relationship with. Take it really low so you can maintain that. Those people will go up in the organization and become your evangelists. They will help you drive it deeper in the organization. So small investment, big payback.